Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. In case you're new here, my name's Jennifer, and we are out here in my backyard, and this is where my chickens live. So today we're going to be talking about winter chicken care. So I'm just going to go through my coop setup, and we're going to talk about the different things that I am doing personally to keep my chickens warm and happy and healthy during this winter. Now I just want to give a disclaimer up front. I'm not a chicken expert, so we've only had our chickens for about a year, and so we are probably not going to know all of the tips and tricks. So if you have any other suggestions, any other tricks that you do to keep your chickens happy and healthy and doing well all winter long, go ahead and leave those in the comments, because I would love to learn, and I'm sure other people who are watching this video would as well. So additionally, the kind of precautions that you're going to need to take for chickens, it's going to depend a lot on the winter weather in your area, on where you're located and what kind of weather you can expect, how much snow, how windy it is, what kind of temperatures you can expect. It's going to vary a lot. I'm located in Connecticut. I am in zone 6. So we do have pretty cold winters, especially compared to a lot of the country, but there is also a significant portion of the country, I live in America, that is going to have much more severe winters than we have here too. So I guess we're probably kind of in the middle. So if you are in an area where you're going to be getting negative 30 degrees and 5 feet of snow, you're probably going to want to get some tips from people in your area that are accustomed to that kind of winter weather. Or if you're in the sunny south and your weather never really gets that cold, you may not even need to take most of these precautions that I'll be taking. But I'm just going to walk you through what we've done, and as I said, I look forward to reading your tips in the comments. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is wrapping the run in plastic. You can see that we have this done here. Now, I did film some footage of my husband Dan and I wrapping the run in plastic a few days ago. So we're going to go back and see that footage, and then I'll bring you back here and we'll talk a little bit about how it's holding up after a couple days. As you can see, today we're outside by the chicken coop, and it is time to get this chicken coop ready for winter. Now, chickens in our area don't need any supplemental heat. I live in Connecticut, where for the most part, it's not going to get cold enough to really negatively affect the chickens, but they don't like wind, and we do want to keep them as warm as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to be taking a few measures to winterize this chicken coop. Probably the biggest project that we're doing today is, you can see that we've started wrapping our run in plastic. That's basically going to cut down on the wind in this run, so our chickens can be happy being out in the run even on windy days. Now, I have definitely noticed with our chickens, when it gets cold out, they're fine being outside, but when it's windy out, they don't like it at all, and they'll tend to stay in their coop if it's cold and windy. So we want them to definitely feel comfortable going out in their run. So we're going to finish up wrapping that. You can see we got most of it done, but we did save a little bit to show you guys kind of how we are doing that. So let's get started by wrapping this run. We're gonna finish that up, and then I'm just gonna show you guys a couple other little things that I've done to get this coop ready for winter. So basically with our run here, you can see that we are still working on this, but what we used was a combination of these little eye hooks. I think we just got these at Walmart. You could get them at your local home improvement store, any place like that. We also got these shower curtain hooks. And what we're using for plastic is actually some cheap shower curtain liners. I think we just got these at Walmart. You might even be able to get them at your local dollar store, someplace like that. So basically what we are doing, we are attaching this to the run using a combination of different techniques. So you can see here, we have an eye hook that's screwed into this board here. And then we've just used this shower curtain hook to go through the hole on the shower curtain and through the eye up here just to hold it in place. So I hope you'll excuse any wind noise. It's a little bit of a windy day today. So our chickens think we're a little overdue on doing this project. We should have had it done before the wind today. But this one here, you can see we didn't have any wood in this right spot to attach this shower curtain to. So we just took the shower curtain hook and we kind of threaded it through our hardware cloth and also through the grommet of the shower curtain. So that's going to hold it in place. So we're just going to go ahead and install the rest of this and get it all set up. Then we're going to kind of improvise something to attach to the bottom of the shower curtain so that it hopefully does not blow all over the place like it is right now.
All right, so I have the screw eye here, and I have the shower curtain. What is it called?
Shower curtain hook.
Okay, so the shower curtain hook. And so I'm just kind of ballparking where I'm going to have to actually pre-drill. So I'm going to say roughly right about here. So I just mark it with the tip of the screw here. I'm going to pre-drill just a little ways here, just to make it a little easier to screw it in. So I'm just going to hand tighten it, and then I'm going to screw it in further with the extra screwdriver. And what I do is I just put the tip of the screwdriver through the loop, and then just make it tight. There we go. And voila. There we go.
So of course the challenge with this is going to be, we have it secured to the run, but it's going to be how to secure it at the bottom as well so that it isn't blowing everywhere. So we're going to figure that out, and we're going to let you know what we do.
So the idea that we have anyway is to take these screw eyes, put them along the bottom, and then run the rope through the screw eye. In theory, that should keep the plastic. So the idea is we're going to have the rope high enough running along the bottom of the coop where the wind won't be able to get under it and push the shower curtain out. So I guess we'll see how well that actually works. So the plastic obviously doesn't always stop in the ideal spot. So I am going to slit the plastic with my knife here and then put the screw eye through that so later it'll be easier just to slide the plastic off and on as the seasons change. So I just had a string that was lying around. We're going to use this. Ideally, I'd want something a little bit thicker, I think, but for now we're going to use this. And I'm just going to tie it to one of the eye screws, run it across the bottom, run it through the other eye screw, and I guess just keep going. See how it works.
All right, so we got our chicken run all wrapped for today. You can see that it's nicely wrapped now. Well, I don't know if it's nicely wrapped, it's wrapped. So we did kind of have to improvise with a couple things. This is the first time we have really fully wrapped our chicken run like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of troubleshoot this for a couple days. And then once we know how it's working, we are going to let you know. I'm going to come back and just show you a little more detail about it. And if we have to make any changes, we will let you know at that time. So I'm going to see you back here in a couple days and give you the update. So it's been a couple days now. I think it's been 4 days since we put up this plastic, or today is the 4th day. And so far it's held up really well. We've had the normal level of wind that we get in our area. It hasn't been severely windy, but it's definitely been kind of breezy. And so far it's held up great. I do want to say we did not go really heavy duty with this, and so I think if we had a real serious windstorm, I don't think this would hold up. But for the normal weather that we generally expect in our area this time of year, this should be fine. I will update you again on that after we've gone through a winter with it, and I'll let you know how well it held up. But for now, I just want to talk a little bit about why we did this the way we did. And as I said, we just kind of figured this out as we went along, and this is probably not the ultimate ideal way to do it, but this is our kind of make do with what we have way, and I think it's working pretty well so far. One thing you'll notice here is that we left a bare area on the top, and that was a mix of intentionality and the fact that our shower curtains just weren't long enough to go all the way to the top. Now, the plastic shower curtain liners that we purchased for this project are not tall enough to go up to the top of the coop, that is true. But we could have purchased additional ones and put a second layer on the top or kind of cut them to fit. We definitely could have done that. We chose not to do that for a couple of reasons. One is that the most important area that you want to have covered is where your chickens are actually going to be. While chickens do really well in cold temperatures, they don't like wind blowing on them because they fluff up their feathers to hold in warmth, and they're able to keep their body temperature warm really well that way. But the wind blowing on them will kind of whisk away all that heat that they've built up, and that's what really makes them cold. So the area where the chickens are going to be is covered. This is going to be significantly above their heads up here, and that shouldn't really affect them that much. Additionally, you can see that our run has a roof. So that roof has an overhang of about a foot on all sides. That's going to keep any snow or anything else like that from blowing in here. So unless we get a really crazy blizzard with snow blowing around everywhere, this should keep most of the snow out of the run. Now, there are little bits of gaps here and there that snow could get in, but for the most part, this is going to do the trick. The other thing that we took into consideration when opting to leave this part exposed was the fact that this is clear plastic, and on bright sunny days that are a little bit warmer, it's possible that this will kind of capture the sunlight, and basically the greenhouse effect will take effect, and in this run will be warmer. We didn't want it to get so warm to the point that it's a shock to the chickens because they're used to this cold weather outside. Now, that might be completely unrealistic of me to think that that could happen, but I didn't want to take any chances. So just in case, leaving that little bit exposed, I think is fine. It's going to provide good air circulation, and we just chose to do it that way. Now, when you saw the footage a couple days ago of us installing this, you saw that we were putting this bottom string along the edge to hold it into place. We did choose to put a second one up here. the camera's choosing to focus on my hand rather than on the wrapping. But you can see that second string up there, and I think that that was definitely the way to go. So I think having the 2 levels of string really helps it hold in place better. Now you did see when we were installing this, I showed you the mechanism that we used to attach the shower curtains to the hardware cloth and also to the wooden parts of the coop. Now, I'm sure there are more efficient ways to do that. We were trying to be very budget friendly. That's one of the reasons that we chose the method that we did. You could definitely get heavy duty plastic tarps that have grommets on both the tops and the bottom, and that would be something that would hold up much more easily. It would be much easier to attach the bottom as well using that same hook and eye method. So if you're looking for something that's going to last season after season, a heavy duty plastic tarp is probably the way to go. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get a second season out of this shower curtain or not, but whether we do or not, we now have a system in place. So if we have to replace these shower curtains with something a little more heavy duty next year, then at least we've gotten a little bit of practice kind of figuring out how to do this, and we'll tweak this system next year to hopefully make it even better. Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention about our wrapping job is you can see right here, this is the part actually under the coop itself, and we did not choose to wrap that. We do have some more plastic, and so maybe later on in the winter, if it gets really cold, we may end up adding that part in as well. We were kind of pressed for time on the day that we did this, and I think right now, I think what we have is really good enough. It hasn't really gotten that cold here, and since we've put the plastic up on the rest of the run, the chickens have been outside in their run pretty much all the time, so I think that they are really enjoying that break from the wind. So as I said, we'll see if we need to wrap this as time goes on. We may add some more plastic around this, but as of right now, we haven't done that yet. So the next thing we took into account when thinking about winter chicken care, and this is something that is really important, is making sure that they always have access to water that is not frozen. Now, when it gets really cold, obviously water freezes, and you have a couple options of what to do there. But chickens can be pretty seriously negatively affected by lack of drinking water, even for a very short time. So you definitely want to make sure that they always have access to fresh water that is not frozen. So you can see here, this is our normal chicken waterer. We have a 5-gallon bucket with chicken nipples on the bottom of it. And we really like that system every time except the winter. Now, one of the things we really like about it is that it's completely enclosed, so the chickens can't kick stuff into it. So that is one of the drawbacks of the really simple watering system that we're using this winter, which is a heated dog bowl. Now, you can get fancy chicken waterers that, working with a nipple system, that are heated and will keep the water defrosted all winter. So that's a great option too. They're a little bit more expensive. Another thing that you could do, which is something that we actually might be switching to later in this winter, we'll kind of see how the winter goes. You can get a plug-in submersible water heater that you would stick into a bucket watering system like this, and it just keeps the water above freezing so that they always have access to water. So we may switch to that at some point, but so far this heated dog bowl has actually been working really well for us, and that is a really affordable option. We just got this, I think, at Tractor Supply when we very first got chickens. We got our chickens partway through last winter, and so we kind of jumped into the deep end of chicken care there. But this worked really well all winter. Now, of course, there are some drawbacks to using an open system like this as well. The biggest one being that chickens love to scratch. They dig around, and I do have to change this water really regularly because of the stuff that they get in it. But you can see the cinder block that I have down here. Now, this is actually a half-height cinder block as opposed to a full-height one, because a full-height cinder block would raise this up too high that it would be very difficult for the chickens to drink out of it. And even using the half-height cinder block, I did dig it into the ground about halfway, so it's really only sticking out of the ground by a couple inches, because the chickens also have to deal with the height of the bowl itself to get to the water, and I didn't want them to have any trouble accessing the water. But just raising it up that couple inches is enough that they've been kicking significantly less debris into their water bowl, and it's been definitely staying cleaner. Now, some people also just choose to use kind of a rubber feeding bowl. If you don't have access to electricity, you may need to do something like that. And then you're just gonna come out first thing in the morning and knock the ice out of it and put fresh water in. So that's an option as well. Another option that people use if they don't have access to electricity in their chicken coop is to have 2 chicken waterers. Basically, first thing in the morning, you bring one out and hook it up, and you bring the existing frozen one into your house to thaw, and you keep switching them back and forth each day. And by doing that, you're always bringing out fresh water every day. So that's another option as well. We are blessed to have our shed right behind this chicken coop, which does have electricity run to it. So all we need to do is have an extension cord running from this heated dog bowl out to that shed, and that provides enough electricity to keep our water from freezing. So those are a couple considerations that you need to take into account with your chicken run as far as winter chicken care. But there are a couple things that you're going to want to think about with the actual coop itself. So let's go take a look in the chicken coop, and I'm going to show you the few steps that we've taken to really winterize this chicken coop a little bit better. Now you can see in this chicken coop behind me, we have a couple of roosting bars, which actually it looks like someone pooped on that last night. So that'll be a fun little cleaning project for me later today. But the main thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is this bedding here. Now you're obviously going to have some kind of bedding in your chicken coop all year round, but when it comes to winter, it's important to make sure that you have a nice thick layer of bedding, because that is going to provide some good insulation on the floor of the coop. Now, especially if you have a really large coop or your chickens are somewhere in a barn that's really spacious and you don't want to have to provide that much really thick bedding, another option is to get hay bales or something like that and pile them against the walls of your coop. Basically, you just want to have insulation against the cold air coming in, and especially on the floor. Now, I'm sure you noticed when I was showing you the run, my coop is elevated off the ground, so there is that little bit of air underneath the coop. So my coop is essentially surrounded by cold air. So it's extra important in my situation to make sure they have that really thick bedding in place. But even if your coop is sitting on the ground, you still do want to protect them from the cold that comes from the frozen ground. So you can see our bedding here is pretty thick. We use the deep litter method for our bedding anyway, so our coop always has a pretty thick layer of bedding. But it's even more important in the winter. Even if you don't use the deep litter method normally, you do want to have a nice thick layer of bedding in the coop. Now, the deep litter method is a whole other topic, but pretty much the basic premise of it is that you are allowing the chicken waste and the bedding to compost together in the coop. And a lot of people say that that composting action is actually going to, if you've made compost before, you know that compost, while it's working, heats up quite a bit. And so the idea with the deep litter method is that, one, it's going to provide really good insulation. Two, as far as winter care, it's going to, in theory, as it's composting, heat up a little bit and possibly warm the temperature of your coop by a couple degrees. So I haven't ever had any thermometers out here measuring temperature, so I can't definitively say that it has done that for us. But it makes sense in theory, and I think as long as you do it right, it is really beneficial for the health of your chickens. Now, of course, if you're doing that, you do need to make sure that your chicken waste and your bedding stay in the proper proportions, because if you let too much waste accumulate without providing the right ratio of bedding, it can actually be harmful for your chickens instead. But as I said, that's a whole separate topic, so we won't get into that today. One other thing you'll notice about our chicken coop, well, right now you can see that the windows are open. It's actually a pretty warm day today for this time of year. It's in the 40s, and I've decided it was a good day to kind of let the chicken coop air out, especially as I'm talking to you guys out here, and the wind is trying to close this coop door on me, so I'm going to try to keep that open. One other step that we have not taken yet, but we will be doing really soon, is to add weather stripping around the frame of the window, because that way when it's closed, at night when it gets cold, I have been closing it, and during days that are really cold, I have been closing the windows. Because you'll notice where this window is situated, if a draft came in, it would be blowing directly on the chickens that are on the roost, which is exactly what you want to avoid in winter weather. You want to make sure that your coop is not drafty. Now, people always say you want to make sure that your coop is not drafty, but ventilated. And that always seems like kind of a contradiction. Like, well, it can't be drafty, but it needs to be ventilated. What does that really mean? So the basics of what that means is that you don't want to have any cold air blowing on your chickens. So this window will be closed while they're sleeping in here. But you'll notice in the back there, on the back wall, we do have holes drilled, and we have matching ones on the front here that you can't see on the camera. Those are above the chickens' heads, so air coming in through those holes will not be blowing directly on the chickens, so they won't have to feel that draft. Now, the unfortunate thing with ventilation is that you are going to have some heat loss, especially since it's located towards the top of the coop, and hot air rises. So there is going to be some heat loss from that. Chickens are actually more at risk from too much moisture accumulating in the coop than they are from being too cold. And if you have your coop buttoned up tight, it's really cold outside, your coop inside is going to heat up from the heat of the chicken sleeping. It's going to get hot and it's going to get moist in there, and that moist air can damage your chicken's respiratory systems and cause disease. It can also lead to frostbite. Now, talking about moisture in the coop does lead me to one more thing I wanted to mention, and it kind of ties in with, we were talking about water before. You'll notice in my coop here, we don't have any food or water actually in the coop. That's all in the run. Now that's intentional because we don't want to keep the water in the coop because that's going to lead to additional buildup of moisture. And moist air in the winter is really bad for your chickens. You want to avoid that as much as possible. So we have an automatic chicken coop door. You can kind of see it a little bit in the back there. And it has a light sensor. So as soon as the sun comes up in the morning, that's going to open up and the chickens can go out. They have their plastic covered run so they'll be safe from wind. They can get their food and water. And then if they're too cold, they can come back in here and hang out. But we don't want any water in the coop because just water being in there will lead to moist air. But especially if the water gets spilled by the chickens, that's definitely going to lead to a lot of moisture, and that is definitely something that is harmful to your chickens. Now there's a couple other optional things that we might be doing when we get snow on the ground to give our chickens kind of some enrichment in this coop as they're stuck in the run. We will probably, you saw that we had a couple of roosts in the actual coop, but we're planning to add a roost somewhere in this run as well, possibly a chicken swing, although I've heard mixed reviews on whether or not chickens actually use them. I think chickens are pretty individual, and I think it really does depend on the chicken. But they seem kind of fun and whimsical to me, so we might give one of those a try. If nothing else, it'll be entertaining for us. And as I said, we'll probably add a roost in here so that the chickens have some other kind of activities to do, things to climb on, and things to keep them entertained during the winter. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and just seeing the steps that I'm taking to winterize my chicken coop and run, and just to prepare my chickens for winter. So go ahead and leave in the comments the kind of things that you do to keep your chickens safe in the winter. Because as I said, I'm fairly new to chickens and there's a lot that I don't know. So I would love to get some more tips from everybody else. And especially if you're experienced with chickens, or if you live in a different area of the country than me, I'm curious to hear how people in areas with really cold winters, especially with really cold snowy winters, how do you keep your chickens warm and safe in the winter? Or people in the South, what kind of precautions do you really have to take? I know, as I said, I'm pretty far north, but because I'm near the ocean, I think it kind of regulates our temperature a little bit, so we don't get the really extreme temperatures that a lot of other places this far north do get. So I'm curious to hear how the experience is for people in different parts of the country and people in other countries as well. I would love to hear how you keep your chickens warm and safe during the winter, and also some kind of optional things. How do you keep them entertained in the winter? If there's a lot of snow outside and they don't want to go outside in the snow, how do you keep them happy? So just go ahead and leave those in the comments, and I look forward to reading your suggestions and thoughts. All right, guys, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're staying warm. I hope your chickens are staying warm, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, guys. I'll see you next time.